Hello, welcome back to Anaheim, and today we will be doing Freestyle. If you haven't seen the racing video, go back and watch that if you haven't already, and we're gonna go over some of the rules. First things first, each truck will have 2 minutes and 30 seconds to do the complete run. Another rule I have is with the rollovers, as we will demonstrate now. So, here we have a truck. Now, if this truck is to roll over onto its side, like so, then it will have a limited amount of time to get itself back onto its wheels. If it rolls onto its roof, well then the run for the truck is basically over. Now when I said the truck have a limited amount of time to roll themselves over, what I mean is they have until their engine is starved of oil to get themselves back onto their wheels, like so. When smoke starts coming out of the engine is starved of oil, and so the truck's run is over. So, with the rule of rolling over explained, let's get on to our first truck. Alright, first truck we have up is Sparky. I believe this is one of the BeamNG brand trucks, because I know I've seen that name on some of the maps. So let's see what they can do. Looks like they're trying to find where to go first for their obstacle. Looks like they found it. And there they go with the timer starting. Remember, they have 2 minutes and 30 seconds to complete the course. After that, any stunts or such they do will not be counted. And up they go off the racing lane, landing back down and popping a bit of a wheelie from that. It's pretty good. Turning around, hitting the racing obstacle that they had to drive around earlier. Going up the center ramp and across the obstacle completely. And looks like they're going to go up the ramp again, getting some pretty good air, landing back down, and losing the hood in the process. Up the next ramp they go, and landing down a bit harder, popping another little bit of a wheelie, and going straight for another ramp. Alright, looks like they've hit the obstacle again, done a flip and land down hard on the roof, but they managed to save it and go over some of the crush cars that were used earlier in the racing. Up the racing obstacle they go, landing down and going straight up the makeshift ramp that is part of the center obstacle. Going around again, hitting the ramp, landing on the obstacle, and going straight for the racing one and doing a little bit of a twirl there. And they're able to save it. Very good. Alright, they're going off again. Hitting the racing obstacle yet again, landing down hard. Some of the body panels are flapping around, and almost into the wall. Actually, I think they did touch the wall. Alright, they got about 30 seconds left. What else can they do? Cross the main obstacle, turning themselves back around, going over some of the crush cars, landing a bit weirdly, but manages to get right back onto its wheels. Turning around again, getting some nice air from the racing obstacle, almost tipping over, and with time over about, it seems that will be the end for their run, so everything else they do is just simply for show. And that was Sparky. Pretty good first run. Now let's move on to the next truck. Alright, up next we have Son of a Digger. This truck lost in the first round of racing, so let's see if they can do better here in Freestyle. Off they go. Let's see, they're going to look for their first obstacle to hit. And they seem to have found it. Up the crush cars at a rather weird angle, but landing down nice and good. Going up one of the ramps, landing on the racing lane, then going straight for one of the racing obstacles. Turning themselves around to then go over some of the crushed cars, getting some pretty good distance out of that. And they're going straight for the backflip ramp and landing down hard. Oh, and it looks like they broke their rear. Oh yeah, their shock absorber is broken. Oh, that's going to make it a little bit harder. But up the ramp they go. Broken shock absorber will not be stopping them at all. Going into a tumble, losing the hood, but managing to land right back onto its wheels. Going over some of the crushed cars. And going right up another ramp. That shock absorber will not stop them at all. Tapping the wall a little bit, backing up, and keep going with a little bit of a wheelie. But that's not bad. Going straight over the crushed cars for some pretty big air and landing down hard on the front. Are they able to save it? Yes, they are. Going back over the crushed cars again. Continuing on, going over the ramp, getting some pretty good air time out of that. Turning around, gonna tap the crushed cars a little bit. Going off the racing lane, landing down hard and tipping over into the stands. Well, I think that's gonna be the end of the run, but I suppose we can just kind of leave them there. I think my FPS will be able to handle that. So let's move on to the next truck then. Up next we have Remembrance, specifically the Blackout version, which is one of 3 variants of this truck skin, I believe. So let's get him going. Funny enough, Blackout is actually one of the Gravedigger skin that I'm also using for this, because I thought it looked cool. Anyway, yeah, Remembrance is going. They've hit a couple of jumps so far, and they're going for a third. Up the ramp, landing down pretty good. Yes, right back on all 4 of their wheels. They're going over the crushed cars and landing back down. Very nice. Looks like they're turning around, heading for the racing obstacle yet again. And they managed to land it and go for the center ramp. I don't think anyone's gone that direction yet, but there's only been 2 trucks previously, so let's see if anyone else does. Goes up the next ramp with some pretty good speed and lands it down on the obstacle again, but keeps going. Looks like it's going for the backflip ramp. Yes, he is. There he goes. Doing a little bit of a weird backflip. It almost rolls over, but manages to land it again and goes for a second backflip. Is he able to land it this time? Yes, and goes right into a wheelie. That's pretty impressive. Turning around, looks like he's gonna go for the center ramp yet again. Yep, getting some pretty big air off that ramp. Popping a little bit of a wheelie. I don't think there's much of a wheelie. But here he goes again. He's gonna go over the crushed cars. Right over the center obstacle. Looks like he's gonna go for that ramp yet again. Getting some pretty big air, landing right on the center ramp, and just keeps on going. Turning around again, going for the crushed cars, and going a little bit squirrely, but manages to recover. 20 seconds left. What is there? Let's see if they can do anything else. Hits the ramp, lands back down right onto the wheels. 10 seconds left. And they're going right into a donut. Looks like that's going to be how they finish off their run. And they flip right over. Well, that was a pretty impressive run. I think that might have dethroned Sparky. But we'll see if anyone can do better. Up next we have the purple Monster Energy truck. Didn't do that well in racing, but let's see whether they can do significantly better in freestyle. It looks like they're headed... Nope, they're not going straight for that obstacle. Looks like they're probably going to go up the racing ramp. Absolutely. There they go. Their time has started. They land on one wheel, but make it back on all four. Turning themselves around, going up the racing obstacle, and then going straight across some of the ramps there. Turning themselves back around, going up for some pretty big air, landing on the racing lane, and almost flipping themselves over. Alright, looks like they're gonna head straight for the center ramp for some even bigger air before landing back down pretty hard. Looks like they're gonna go straight for the racing obstacle, putting their nose right in the sky, going over some of the crush cars, before going straight for even more crush cars for some even more air. Looks like they're headed straight into the corner, almost bumping the wall there. Now they're gonna go up the ramp. There they go, landing on their side almost flipping themselves over. Are they able to save it? Yes. Almost losing the hood in the process. It looks like it's about to fall off. Alright, they're turning themselves back around, going over the crush cars, bumping into the center ramp, rolling it over, and finally losing the hood. And they're gonna go up the racing lane. I think that was the racing lane they had during the race. Going over the crush cars, and not going over the crush cars, the wheels getting caught by the cars. And looks like they're going for the backflip ramp, not going for the backflip ramp, but getting their right front tire popped, and almost flipping over yet again, but managing to land it back down. Going up the ramp, across the center obstacle, landing down on the front wheels, and that front right tire is making it a little bit hard to turn in that direction. Oh yeah, look at that tire. That tire is flat. And they're going to go up the racing lane yet again, landing down on all four of their wheels. Turning themselves back around, going over the crush cars. About 10 seconds left. Over the center ramp, landing hard on the front, but managing to make it back, and that will be time for them. Anything else left is simply for show. And it looks like that will be the end of the run for the purple Monster Energy truck. Next truck up, we have our racing winner, Obsessed, who, as you can see, lost some of the body panels in racing. But let's see whether they can match their racing win with a freestyle win. Well, they hit the racing obstacle, so that's going to start their counter, even though that might not be when they wanted to start. Going for the crush cars that are on the side, and almost flipping over, and popping a wheelie right after recovering. Going up the racing lane and across the obstacle a little bit. Looks like they're going to go for a backflip. There they go, right into a backflip and rolling over. Are they going to recover? Yes. And I don't believe that would count for the rollover rule that I have. Tumbling a lot after hitting that ramp at a weird angle. Looks like they're going to go over the crush cars. Hitting the racing obstacle, doing a flip and losing the wheel. That's going to hurt the driving a little bit. Hitting down, going for the center obstacle. Landing on the side and tumbling for a little bit. Looks like they're going to have to use their save now to get back onto their wheels. There they go. Now if they roll over, they won't be able to recover. Hitting the ramp at a weird angle. But that doesn't seem to be stopping our racing champion here at all. Getting stuck on those tires, sticking out of the ramp, going across the main obstacle, and tumbling over yet again. And going straight into a wheelie. Looks like they're going to continue their wheelie for a little bit. Trying to turn themselves around. That wheel's going to hurt a little bit. Oh, hitting the backflip ramp and rolling over. that will be the end of Obsessed Run. They didn't get to finish their time, so that's the end of the run. Let's see how everyone else does. Our next truck up is Obsession, who in real life is driven by the father of the driver of Obsessed. So let's see whether the father can do better than the son. Obsession's driving around, either showing off or looking for a good place to start. And it looks like he's found where he wanted to go. Up the combination of a racing lane and the center ramp, landing back down, popping a little bit of a wheelie, before turning back around and going right up the racing obstacle, landing on 2 wheels but managing to recover. Turning himself around again to now go across the center obstacle, landing on 2 wheels again, almost rolling over, and manages to save it, popping another wheelie, and popping yet another wheelie. Goes up the small ramp there, lands down on 2 wheels yet again, and proceeds to go across the crushed cars and into the center ramp. Turning around once again, hitting the same ramp as he did earlier, but landing in a different position. Rear wheel clips on the ramp, but that's alright. He sends it right into the sky, almost rolls it over, but recovers once again. Turning himself around to hit that obstacle, and another landing on 2 wheels, up the racing lane, and headed for some of the cars on the ramp. Turning around once again to go across the racing lane, getting some pretty big air off of that. Turning around yet again to hit one of the racing obstacles, pointing the nose at the sky. Before turning around to go after the crushed cars yet again. Up he goes, pointing the nose to the sky, rolling it over, and manages to land it back on all 4 wheels before popping another wheelie. Ooh, hits the backflip ramp pretty hard, and then rolls it over. Looks like it's time to use that one save that they get. And Obsession managed to bring it back on all 4 wheels. Going up the ramp on that big center obstacle, and losing the center part of the body panels from the truck completely. Hitting the crushed cars, managing to clear the obstacle, for hitting the other racing obstacle and almost running into the wall. Now he runs into the wall. And that will be time. It looks like Obsession isn't done yet. Still got a few more tricks left. And lands on the wall and rolls it over. That's the end of the run for Obsession. Let's get on to our next truck. Our next truck up is one of my favorites, Blue Thunder. There are other versions of this truck in the game, but I'm running on the older body style, which is my favorite version of the truck. And off he goes. Let's see what he hits first. Looks like he's going for the crushed cars, getting some pretty big air to start off with. And gives a little tap to the wall there. Backs it up to then go for the center obstacle. Getting some fairly nice air off of that and popping a little bit of a wheelie. Turning himself around to go over the racing obstacle. And lands a little bit weirdly, but manages to land on all 4 wheels. And goes across the main obstacle and over some of the cars at the end. And is now headed for the other racing obstacle, getting some fairly nice air off of that. And it looks like now he's going to go back for the main obstacle, getting some pretty big air, and lands on 2 of the wheels, but is able to recover from that. And now heads off for the smaller ramp, and lands it back down again. Getting a little bit squirrely after that landing though, but is able to recover. Rear wheels clip some of the dirt, but nonetheless the truck is able to recover and keeps going. Up the racing ramp and lands a bit sideways. Almost goes out of the stadium. And is now going for the racing obstacle they just came off of. Getting some fairly nice air off of that. And getting a little squirrely going on to the center obstacle. Looks like they're about to roll over. Nope, they're able to recover. And now they're going for the backflip. There they go. Landing on one of the wheels. Almost rolls over, but manages to save themselves. And now they are going back for the main obstacle, getting some pretty big air. And going over the crush cars. It almost rolls over once again. About 30 seconds left on the clock for Blue Thunder. Goes over some of the crush cars and past Son of a Digger. Get some more air off of that ramp. He points the nose towards the sky. Turn himself around to go for the racing obstacle, but hits it a little bit weird and doesn't get the air he wants to. Looks like he's going to try and go for a donut for the last of the time. And starts his donut, and that will be time for Blue Thunder. It looks like that will be the end of the run for Blue Thunder. That was fairly good. Now let's move on to our next competitor. Up next we have Hot Wheels Demo Derby, or as the file says, just Demo Derby. But I call it Hot Wheels Demo Derby since it has Hot Wheels on the side of the truck. So let's get this truck started. Off he goes. Looks like he's going to try and find a good place to start off his run from. I'm going to drive by where the trucks would normally be, but if I put them all there, then my FPS wouldn't be particularly good. Looks like he's found where he wanted to go. And up the center ramp he goes, landing back down and popping a little bit of a wheelie, and runs right into the wall, losing the hood. As he started going again, and hits the racing obstacle in a weird way, and manages to save the truck. Right back onto all four wheels, and it will keep going. It looks like he's going for the backflip. There he goes, right into a nice clean backflip. Looks like he's going to go straight for that center obstacle, getting some big air and landing right onto the center ramp. Turning himself around again to go for the crush cars. Up and over the crush cars he goes, lands back down, and recovers the truck. Turning himself around yet again to now go up again, getting some even more big air. And bumps the ramp with the crush cars on it. Looks like he's going to go up this small ramp. And doesn't really pop a wheelie, but continues on otherwise. Alright, looks like he's not going to go for the backflip ramp, but is instead going to do a donut. There he goes, starting a donut. About 1 minute left, so he's got plenty of time to go and do other stuff. Up that ramp he goes. That ramp seems pretty popular today. Alright, looks like he's going to go over the crush cars, past Son of a Digger. Landed on one wheel, but is able to recover from that. Turns himself around, gets some nice air, pops the nose into the sky, and is able to keep on going. Looks like he's going to go for the racing obstacle again, getting some nice air off of that. Alright, looks like he's going to go for the backflip ramp yet again. There he goes. Nice, good backflip, and he's going to go for it for a second time, landing himself back onto the wheels. I don't think anyone will do or have done 3 backflips in a row. Alright, 5 seconds left. Is there anything else he can do? Is he able to save it? He saves it. And it looks like there's still more he wants to do, but remember, since time is up, these will not count for his final score overall. And it looks like that will be the end for Hot Wheels Demo Derby. Let's move on to our next truck now. Up next we have the red El Toro Loco truck. There's a few other versions of this truck in the game. There's a black one, there's a yellow one, and there's the older version of this truck, and as you can see, it has smoke that comes out of its nose. So yeah, there's quite a few versions of this truck. And, well, it started. And up and over the crush cars it goes, starting off its run, blowing smoke out of the nose once again. Going up and over the racing obstacle. And now it's going for the center obstacle after getting a little squirrely, but I guess that was what it was pointed at. And now it's going to go back over the crushed cars again, not doing smoke this time. It's going up the center ramp for some pretty big air, smoke coming out of the nose once again. And it's going to go up the crushed cars and hits the wall a little bit, bouncing off, but that doesn't seem to have stopped it. It takes advantage and goes over the crushed cars in reverse. That hadn't been done yet. And it's going to go right for the ramp made off of the racing lane. Lands back down and goes off to find yet another obstacle to hit. Looks like it's going to be the small bump next to the backflip ramp. Almost rolls itself over, but that was able to recover. Up the racing obstacle again. Goes on two wheels for a little bit. Goes up the ramp, almost rolls itself over and loses the horns, then pops a little bit of a wheelie. And El Toro Loco is going to head for the ramp right there, getting some pretty nice air, sticking its nose right into the air. Looks like it's going to head for that small ramp right there, and goes up and comes back down. Now it's going to go over towards the crushed cars, about 30 seconds left, rolls over, loses the hood, and keeps on going. Goes up the racing lane, and rides it on two wheels for a little bit. Goes back around, goes up the opposite racing lane, and goes right for the racing obstacle. Alright, about 10 seconds left of time. Goes over the crushed cars, hits the racing obstacle, and almost rolls over, runs into the backflip ramp, and I'm pretty sure that just saved it, as well as the end of its time. That's all the time El Toro Loco had. Everything else is just for show. And with that rollover, I think that'll be the end for El Toro Loco. So let's move on to the rest of the trucks we have. Our next truck up is Jester, the orange one specifically, and if you'll notice in the background, Son of a Digger isn't there anymore. Why is Son of a Digger not there anymore? Because every truck from now until the end of the video is recorded on a different day. So let's get Jester moving as he goes, and looking for the first obstacle to go. And as you saw, Son of a Digger isn't there. Looks like Jester's gonna start off with a backflip. There he goes. A little bit of a slow backflip, but that will start the clock anyway. Off he goes, off to the next obstacle, which is right there, getting some pretty nice air. and pops the nose into the air a little bit. Hits the racing obstacle, gets some nice air off of that. Goes over the crushed cars, and is now looking for the next thing to hit. And there it goes, getting some pretty nice air off of that ramp. Going for the small ramp now. Up he goes, lands it down. And I'm pretty sure that's supposed to be like a wheelie ramp. But up Jester goes over the crushed cars, turns himself around to go for the center obstacle once again, this time at a bit of a weird angle. Rear wheel clips the ramp and he flips himself around, rolls over. Looks like it's time to use that one save to get back on all four wheels. There he goes. Up the ramp he goes, lands back down. Body panels opening up like a car door, it seems. Over the crushed cars with a pretty good amount of speed. Now he's going to go hit that ramp, which is again pretty popular, for some nice big air and some distance from that. Lands once again on all of the wheels, and proceeds to go for the crushed cars yet again. Turns himself around on the crushed cars and is now going for the center ramp, getting some pretty big air, and lands right on the other side of the ramp. Drives on two wheels for a little bit, but saves it. Almost runs into the wall, so now he's got to back up, and there he goes, up the racing lane, and lands it down and rolls it over right onto the roof. But lands on his wheels, but he already used his one save, so he can't use it anymore. On to the next truck. Our next competitor up is Viper. They lost to Gravedigger in racing, but let's see whether they'll be able to beat everyone else in freestyle. Alright, off they go. Looks like they're gonna go for the front of the main obstacle this time. There they go, over the crushed cars and landing back down. Turning themselves around to then hit that obstacle that has, I think that's a black log or something. I don't know why that is in the ramp, but oh well, it's in the course. Turning himself around in that rather tight corner to go up the ramp, lands back down and pops a wheelie. Pretty long wheelie at that as well. All within 30 seconds, and goes right over the crushed cars and turns himself around to then go straight for the backflip ramp. Lands it back down on his wheels and heads for the center obstacle once again, getting some pretty big air. Lands down a bit hard, wheels clip on the crushed cars, but that's alright. Goes over the ramp with the crushed cars on it, lands it back down, pops yet another wheelie and goes on one wheel and does a pretty nice tumble and recovers. Doesn't look like he's going to go for the backflip, but instead jumps and goes over the crushed cars once again. Pops yet a third wheelie this time, and proceeds to turn himself around for the racing obstacle. Lands on two wheels and goes over the crushed cars yet again, bounces on the front wheels, puts it on the back wheels for another short little wheelie, and almost runs into the wall. Looks like he's going to go for the crushed cars yet again, lands it back down, and continues on. Not going to go for a backflip again, but goes for the center obstacle once again, getting some pretty nice air and distance, and goes across the entire obstacle this time. Bumps into the wall a little bit, and hits the racing obstacle once again. Turning himself around, 15 seconds left. Some pretty big air and distance once again from Viper, and lands it back down on all of his wheels. 5 seconds left, and starts off a donut. Clips the ramp and rolls it over with time over. And I don't believe Viper even lost a body panel during that entire run, so that's pretty impressive. On to the next truck. Up next we have the truck Queen of Hearts. Didn't do that well in racing, lost to Blue Thunder, so let's see whether they can be the Queen of Freestyle. Alright, looks like they're going to go for the racing lane to start off their run. Pretty good air, drives on 2 wheels for a little bit. Headed for that ramp, once again seems to be pretty popular and gets some pretty big air off of it. Maybe that's why it's popular, because the trucks are getting a lot of air from it. Goes over the crush cars for once again some fairly nice air, lands on all 4 wheels, pops a little bit of a wheelie, and keeps on going. Hits the racing obstacle, and almost flips the truck over. Turns the truck around, goes for the center ramp this time, getting some fairly nice air from that. Lands on all 4 wheels and almost rolls it over. And saves it, but loses the roof and the side panels in the process. Lands in the front, almost bumps into the wall. And it looks like they're going to go for the bump there. Getting a little bit of air off of that. Turning themselves around, going for the racing obstacle. Up into the air, lands back down, and goes straight for the center obstacle for a nice little combo. Not going for that ramp, but instead going for the crush cars once again for some pretty big air. Jumps over the ramp on that racing obstacle and manages to stop themselves before hitting the wall. Turns around and looks like they're going to go for the center ramp. Not as big air as last time, or some of the others, but that doesn't seem to stop them. Drives on top of the wall this time, and goes for the small ramp over here. Goes up, points the nose a little bit to the sky, and puts it right into a wheelie almost. Goes for the ramp, lands on 2 wheels, and bumps off the wall. Goes backwards for a little bit off that ramp, and looks like they're going to go for the backflip ramp. There they go, land it back down, and about 5 seconds left on the clock. That will be it for the truck as it lands, and with time up, that will be the end of Queen of Hearts' run. That was a pretty alright run. Now let's move on to our next competitor. Up next we have Calculated. This truck lost to Obsessed in round 1 of racing. So let's see whether they can beat Obsessed this time in Freestyle. Off they go, and looks like nope, they didn't find where they wanted to go. Alright, looks like they did now. Up the ramp they go, time has started, and tumbling a little bit. And they flip themselves back onto the wheels without having to use their save. Riding on 2 wheels for a little bit, and saves it. And goes right into a wheelie up the racing obstacle, tumbles, and manages to land itself back onto all of its wheels. And right into a backflip. That's a pretty impressive first few seconds there. Looks like they're going for that ramp again, getting some fairly nice air off of it. Bouncing off the ramp, turning themselves around to go up the small ramp. There they go, landing back on the front wheels and popping up with 1 wheel, and looks like they saved themselves once again. Now it looks like they're going to go for some of the crush cars there, off the ramp, and off they go again. Going up the ramp on the center obstacle, landing on 2 wheels, bouncing off the little edge of the ramp there. turning themselves around, and looks like they're going for the racing obstacle. Up they go, landing on 2 wheels once again, and recovering. Popping a little bit of a wheelie as they go up the center ramp and back down on the other side. Turning once again to go up that ramp, getting a little squirrely and losing the rest of the body panels, and rolling over and saving it once again. And it looks like the rear suspension got stuck a little bit, because that rear shock doesn't look like it's extending all the way, as the truck then rolls over and lands itself once again. And yeah, I'm pretty sure that rear shock is kind of busted. Ooh, truck stuffs it into the rollover, or the backflip ramp, I mean. And continues going. Clips some of the ramps again, tumbles once more, and continues to save itself. Goes up the crushed cars, lands on top of the ramp, and it looks like with time up, that will be the end of the run for Calculated. That's a pretty good run, full of flips and saves. Let's see whether that will get them the win. Up next we have Hang 10. Lost to Obsessed in the semifinals of racing, as well as its hood. But I don't think that's going to stop Hang 10 from having a pretty good freestyle run. Off he goes, and starts off by going over the crushed cars with some pretty big air. Lands down hard, but manages to keep itself going. Turns itself around to go over the crushed cars yet again for some more nice air. Lands it down, and turns around. Up and over the racing obstacle he goes. Lands it down on the front, and jumps over the center obstacle. Turned himself around and goes up and over the racing lane. In fact, I think that's the racing lane they went off earlier. Almost flips themselves over, but manages to recover. Backs himself up and goes up and over the racing obstacle yet again. Goes over the center obstacle with a little bit of a jump. Turns himself around. Looks like he's going for the jump next to the backflip ramp. Turns himself around to hit the racing obstacle yet again, getting some nice air off that jump. Lands hard on 2 wheels, rolls over and manages to recover, and heads for the other racing obstacle before then jumping up and now turning himself around. Gonna go over for the ramp that's on the racing lane and some nice air as well as distance. Lands hard, rolls over and loses one of the surfboards. Hits the jump, lands it, lands on the front wheels and drives over the crushed cars. Gets some nice air off of that racing obstacle before then popping a wheelie. Looks like he's going for the backflip ramp. Does the backflip, lands on the rear wheels, and keeps going. Looks like he's got to find something to do for the next 20 more seconds. Hits the center obstacle, lands on 2 wheels, drives over the crushed cars, and with 10 seconds left to go, goes over the crushed cars once again, lands, and that will be time. So anything that happens now will not be counted for the entirety of the run. And that looks to be the end of the run for Hang 10. Let's get down to our last 2 trucks of the day. Our second to last truck up today is Max D with the front engine, because even though there's a version with the rear engine, last time I checked, I'm pretty sure this truck has a front engine. So here it goes, off with the front engine. looks like he's going to go for the center ramp, getting some pretty big air and landing on the side. And almost rolling himself over, but landing on all four wheels. Up the ramp he goes, getting some pretty nice air off of that. Stuffing it into the center obstacle and going across of it. Looks like he's going to go for the small ramp right there. Up he goes and lands back down. Turning himself around, going up and over the crush cars, landing on his side, rolling over and losing the hood. Turns himself around, to then go for the center obstacle once again, lands it back down, rear wheels clip the ramp, but he manages to recover himself. Turns himself around, goes over the racing obstacle for some fairly nice air. Rear wheel clipped the little bump next to the backflip ramp, and since he's there, I guess he figures he may as well hit the backflip. Up and over, lands it back down, and continues on driving. Hits the center obstacle, lands right on the center ramp. Turning himself around, hitting the ramp from the other side this time. Lands it and manages to turn in midair. And as he goes for the crush cars, he gets some nice air once again. Lands it back down, hits the racing obstacle, and I think something in the suspension just broke. Oh yeah, look at that. That front wheel is not supposed to be in that position. Oh yeah, if you look at the front, I think the shock just kind of stuffed itself inside of itself. So that's going to make driving a little bit harder. As the truck rolls over and recovers, hits the ramp once again, rolls over, and is able to recover it, question mark? Yes. Lands back on the wheels, 15 seconds left on the clock, rolls over once again, looks like it's going to have to use the save to get back on the wheels, and pops it into a wheelie, 5 seconds left to go, up the racing lane, lands it on the other side, and runs into the wall. Time is now up for Max D. And that looks like it will be the end of the run for Max D. The front suspension is a bit damaged, but I think that's alright. Let's move on to our final truck. Our final truck for today is the Gravedigger Blackout version, which is one of my favorite Gravedigger body designs. And off he goes. Let's see what Gravedigger can do as our final truck of the day. Alright, looks like Gravedigger's going to be showing off for a little bit rather than do the course. But I guess that's alright. Looks like Gravedigger's found his target and gets some big air off of that ramp that everyone's been going off of and pops it into a wheelie. Bumps into the ramp there a little bit, manages to get itself out of the corner, and goes for some of the crush cars. Lands it on its wheels and rides on the wall for a little bit. Hits one of the ramps and gets some pretty nice air. Goes up the racing obstacle and does a wheelie up and off the obstacle. Ooh, and loses a wheel as well. That's gonna hurt its ability to turn a little bit. Oh yeah, that's definitely gonna hurt the turning, as you can see. That's, yeah. Well, it looks like Gravedigger's not gonna be stopped by simply missing a wheel, as the truck drives straight into the crush cars and breaks part of the front suspension. As you can see, that bar is not supposed to be where it is. Gravedigger hops the ramp, drives over, and rolls it, lands on its back wheels, and look at that little bar go. Oh, looks like Gravedigger's flipped over. Is he able to save it? Ooh, the front drive shaft just snapped. I don't think he's going to be able to get out of it now. That front wheel is not spinning. No. With the engine starved of oil, that would be the end of Gravedigger's run. Rather disappointing for the final truck of the day, but that will be all of our trucks for now. Alright, well, that'll be it for Ahaheim. This took a lot longer than it had to make, honestly. Right now in the background is basically just an encore of the Beam Monsters monster truck, which is the website where I got the track and all of the trucks from. I'll leave a link to that website in the description. And while you're in the description, there's also a little Google poll thing that I have to determine which truck won based on you think did the best. So go vote in that, and they will move on to a World Finals event going on later. And for the moment, that's about it. There will be another track video out at some point, and I guess I'll release racing and freestyle at roughly the same time, rather than like 2 weeks after the racing video came out. So until then, do whatever you want. Alright, I'm gonna let you watch the rest of this encore then.